call to order the Capital Improvement Committee meeting of March 28th at 10:06 a.m. First thing on our agenda is to review the ranking, or reviewing ranking of the project. So, as we discussed on, Gene wasn't here, so I just repeated as we discussed on Friday, we had all the number threes amounted to $1,735,000. And we had some discussion about possibly backing off from the fire department, the windows, doors, and HVAC and boiler system for $500,000, which would bring us down to $1,235,000. And then I brought up the fact that I had spoken to a few different department heads, one of them being the highway department, and he has his plow truck on there for $215,000, which, if we chose to put that back on the list, would bring us back to $1,450,000. We have approximately $1.1 million to use for capital. Now, somebody brought up the fact that the highway department ranked the plow truck as a 2 instead of a 1. So I took it upon myself to stop into the highway department and ask him how he ranked that and what he had. And I guess this is a habit that they've been doing right along, because Adam happened to be there at the same time. They didn't look at it as an individual item and rank it accordingly. They did them in sequence, being the building as being number 1 and the truck as being number 2, and so on and so forth, which is the wrong approach. You need to look at each individual item and say, is it a 1 priority or a 4 priority? So that's just some clarity for the committee to help with that. I was hoping Matt had joined us, but he hasn't joined us. Just thinking about it, I had asked everybody on the committee to think about this over the weekend, and so we could come to a better place today. I took my own advice and I thought about it as well, and without anything to back it up, I have trouble overlooking the fact that we're not considering the 2 pieces of equipment used for cooking school lunches as being somewhere near a priority for us. The food manager, I believe that's what her title is, had come in and had a pretty good case as to why she needed these 2 particular pieces, and I'm personally just concerned that I think it's our responsibility as a community to provide the proper meals for the students of the school. So, anyways, that's the long and the short of my little spiel. I had handed out, this will be a secondary thing for us. We got to do choose what we're going to put on our list for the 2023 capital items. Then the other packet that I just handed out to everybody was the most up-to-date list that I had received from, we as a group received, but it's on SharePoint, for the projected 5-year plan. As well as the second packet that's in there, and I want to discuss that absolutely last. I don't even want to talk about that yet, because it's going to cloud our decisions as to what we're doing. And all that is just a review of our current ranking system to put some clarity in it and maybe put some structure to it. If we as a group decide that's what we want to do, then we can at least change it. If we want to keep it as is, then we keep it as is. I had also asked that we wait until today to make sure that we had fire chief involved in this conversation. He has a dual role in it, A, as a department head and also as a member of this committee, because we got hard decisions to make. We can't do everything, so we got to figure out how we're going to work around this stuff. So just backing up a little bit, we talked about, I brought up the windows, doors, HVAC and stuff like in the boiler. Matt had suggested that maybe we could pull that out. So that's where that conversation, I forgot that you were here, so apologize for jumping into that without considering your opinion on that.
No, not a problem whatsoever. I mean,
So,
when I rank things as they are, and as if, like, a future public safety complex was somewhere off in the future, not.
Right.
So I
Yeah, we have-
just rank what I have now, you know. So if that gets pulled out, it's not
Yeah.
an issue.
yeah, I have no idea who's going to make the team and make the cut, so.
No, I get it.
We have a hard job to do today, and we have to do it today. We have to come up, not necessarily overly worried about the 5-year plan, because we have a little bit of room, not much, but we have an urgent need to solidify what our choices are going to be for the capital budget, because Finance Committee is tomorrow night. We have no more time to advertise for another meeting. We couldn't meet again tomorrow. We couldn't meet again this afternoon. We have to do it at this meeting. So we have to come up with a...
So I missed the meeting. I did watch
Yep.
it, but I think I picked it up. I watched it this weekend, and I was distracted at the trying to do two
Yep.
things at once. So did we get a list of how things ranked at all, or,
Did you get it?
'cause I didn't get that, unless it's in this packet.
Yeah, it's towards the end.
Okay.
I found, or maybe I had too much, maybe I was.
That's all right. Can I have a copy of yours? If you guys excuse me for a minute. Copy of your brand.
Yeah, so this is,
Here.
I already have one.
Oh, Ben's got one.
You have one?
I'll look at what
He can just read mine.
Let me just go make a copy for you.
Okay,
Yeah, well,
You're going to need that anyways.
all right,
Mike, I'll make it.
thank you.
You can have that one.
So Mike,
Yes.
my quick math is if we do the 360 for the highway, 750 for engine number one,
Okay, wait a minute. I know.
24 for the engine number one,
Here.
gives us 1.1 million.
All right, so say that again, please.
So if we do 360 for the highway,
The paving. Yep.
kitchen equipment for 24,000, and engine number one for 750, those three things bring us to 1.1 million. Okay. 1.13.
So, didn't Matt say, though, that he was going to try to get the school to use what they roll forward every year for the, so,
Well, Matt had made mention of it, and I have no figure on that, so unless you can give us a figure, how do we, no, this is, 1 minute, let me just finish answering Ben, and then you can have.
Yeah, but don't forget to.
I won't forget you, you're my favorite. So, without that number, we can't assume anything. Is the rollover $1 or is it $1 million? We don't know what it is, so we can't really earmark those things into that. Just to be fair about it, that's all. Go ahead, Ellie.
Okay, my thought over the weekend was, I guess Vic and me and Shirley are the only people that don't have sort of an intimate view of what, I mean, you work here, you work here, you work here, you're select.
I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
Good.
But and that too, that he would have, one would hope, an overview of the whole town. And it's almost as if it's department competing against department, and that we're left with, well, which presentation did I like best, or did that person give me some candy today, or something like that. You know, how should I support this? And I almost think it would be helpful if the Matt and his staff figure it out in a quick department heads meeting today.
In an ideal world, maybe that would work. Up until this moment, this is the system that they put in place, that the department heads are charged with bringing forward their wants and their needs. And
Yeah,
that-
okay, well, what I'll say is that I can't pick and choose because I don't have a really good overview of what is needed more than less.
and-
And it goes also with the school request. Those are department priorities 6 and 7 or whatever, and 5, but
On the cooking kettles?
yeah.
No, I'm just asking you, so
Yeah, so.
just to give, because of the information that I brought to you this morning about how the highway and the building facility manager had done theirs in sequence, I would tend to think that maybe they did the same thing, only because I remember that girl sitting here and explaining about these 2 pieces of equipment. Actually, she has it on multiple years, but these 2 particular pieces of equipment were urgent. And I'm not trying to advocate for anything. I'm doing the same thing that you are, and you might not agree that I don't have as much knowledge as you might think I do about this stuff.
No, I think
I'm
you
looking
do.
at the stuff that's presented. I have the town warrants here. I didn't take all this stuff out of that room. We'll pass it around if anybody wants to see it. But we have both the spring and the fall town warrants here to show you what the projected capital plan was, because that's going to come into play when we do that portion of our project. Why I wanted the fire chief here, because unfortunately his is the biggest target number, so that's why I focus on that one. And also keeping in mind on his long-term plan, he also has the truck replacements, I think, he has one for this year, he has one for next year, he has, there was something else, and one for the following year. So strategically, we need to come up with some sort of idea how we can accomplish his goals, right? And he needs to help. His department needs to help us as well. It's not fair to say he. His department needs to help us as well to come up with a plan. Were you here as part of the special capital stabilization fund conversation?
It was last week.
Was that on our last meeting? We
Yeah.
talked about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was.
So if everybody can humor me for a minute, I want
Sure.
to bring Ken up to speed on that. So I've talked to Gene multiple times over the last couple of months about this. I've talked to Matt as well about it. And it's always bothered me how we keep getting into the same position. Go 5 years back, we were talking about engine, was it 3 that we got? All right, 5 years ago. So I aggravated the 2 of them enough that Matt finally says, well, you can do multiple accounts.
Stabilization.
Yeah, let me,
No.
I'm good at words, let me do it, please.
Okay.
So I have to bring him up to speed and explain to him how I got to where I'm at. So I'm not trying to be rude to you. So Matt had mentioned that to me, that we could potentially have multiple accounts, so which put me on a path to try searching. And I went on and I found that in November 7th, 2016, a law was actually passed that allowed for such a thing. Gene's preference was to keep it, either do a rollover of free cash or put it into stabilization, okay, which you know what the rules are on those things. We could do that. It requires a tremendous amount of education to the public, because we can't dictate what a future board or body would do. And Jean has made me well aware of that, because she says that to me every time I ask her this question. So if we created a special stabilization account for this. Now, it could always be changed what the intent was by 2/3 vote at town meeting and all this other stuff. It still needs 2/3 votes to change it. The strategy and through input with the town administrator, he helped me get my head around this a little bit during multiple conversations. If we were to put $100,000 aside for the purchase of a fire truck, if we could get the fire trucks into a 5-year rotation, even though they last 20 years, you have 4 trucks, 5-year rotation. Every 5 years, we would have $500,000 to put towards the truck. For you to come in and get a truck and need a couple $100,000 to offset it, it's easy. Right now, it's not easy because it takes the lion's share of the capital budget, and then we're faced with the same thing next year. You know what your workings are, your department. I don't even want to get into discussing all that stuff. You know what your needs are going to be. You know the condition of the vehicles and all that other stuff. As a town, we need your help to try to come up with a plan to try to correct this. And when we're using the police department vehicles as an example, we were leasing the police department vehicles, and then all of a sudden we had to buy 5 of them. So now it's been corrected that you're only buying 2 at a time, which helps us financially, so we're not in that problem. And I think it's in the budget as well, too, isn't it, Gene?
It comes in the budget. We start cycling it through. Right now, we're in an off year.
Right. It's hard to do that with these large apparatuses, to put it into your budget, I think. And that was the impression I got. So that was the thought process in trying to come up with a special stabilization fund, a special capital stabilization fund or something like that, that we would actually, as a committee, recommend and see if we got it approved at town meeting. It won't happen on this spring town meeting. There's not enough time. Somebody brought up the question, and it might have been Mr. Vandenberg that brought it up, and Matt was going to check into it. It's not critical at this point, so we don't need the answer. As to whether or not that could go on to the fall, it might have to wait until because the fall is a special town meeting. You might not be able to do that during a special town meeting. Anyways, we're back to our capital items. And to answer your question earlier, or your comments earlier, Ellie, was we had the presentation from all the different departments, and that's the only information that we have to go on to put forward a recommendation on it. Mr. Vandenberg had just done a little recommendation, and I know I confused things by throwing the kitchen items in there, which aren't on a 3. They only scored a 2. Not knowing if their budget could absorb it, I'm a little concerned that we don't replace those equipment. If that equipment, what happens with the school lunch program? That's why I brought that back up. The parking lot at the post office parking lot with the senior adult social center. I keep calling it senior center, and I'm not supposed to. So adult social center. Adam had expressed his concern about he's already had a few patrons fall in there. He's worried about the tripping hazard there. So we're still tasked with problems.
What were the 3 that you had said?
Well, when I did the 360 for highway paving, the 750 for the engine one, and then 24 for the kitchen equipment, those 3 came up to 1.1 million.
Oh, so you did the kitchen.
I did, yeah. But there are lots of pieces you could move because of the size of the pieces, right?
Well, I feel that they have some money in their budget, and if it's that much of a crisis situation, that they should use it. Their money going forward. You know?
How much money do they have left over?
Well, somebody said $1 million plus.
No. And what I had said to Ben was that Matt made the comment that they have carryover. And I said to Ben that it could be $1, it could be $1 million. We don't know what it is, and I can't make a recommendation on something that I have no idea what that amount is. It's like if we take the building department's vehicle, that was explained that they're going to use that out of future building fees, and most likely out of these large buildings that we're coming on, because that'll be a very large one-time cost to fund that particular vehicle. So that was a special article that's going to be raised and appropriated, and that's where that money's coming from. But getting back to the school with those things, we don't know what that carryover is. I have no idea.
So then, Jean, you have no idea either?
Well, I think, I'm not sure what carryover you're talking about. The school lunch revolving account has its own account. It's not a fully sustained account, though. They pay their salaries and they pay for the food purchases, like restaurant supplies. If you were looking at that type of thing, like the paper products, the food, and the salaries for running that program, they don't have enough within the revolving account to make purchases like that. I think we closed the year with like $30,000 last year. It wasn't a high amount, especially with COVID. Things were restrictive. I mean, they weren't charging for lunches, so there was a lot of differences. If you're talking about the other two revolving accounts that they have, which would be school choice and circuit breaker can only be used for special education. So you can't use that for these types of purchase. If you listen to the school department's budget, they factor in the use of the revolving accounts, both circuit breaker and school choice, to help fund the operating budget. You heard the presentation last week. So they already build some of that into their operating budget for next fiscal year, so they don't have to make the reductions that would have to be made because the town is proposing a 2% increase for next year's budget. So you can't make a blanket statement that there's a carryover, because there's a story behind the numbers, and you have to take into account that they factor some of those revolving accounts to already fund the next year's operating budget. So it's a little more complicated than just say, yeah, they have $1 million in school choice, or they have this amount in circuit breaker. You have to look at what they're using for FY23 already, what they're trying to retain should we have a new student come in, that needs special education costs. Like I said, I think it would be important for you to look at the school presentation that they made to the Finance Committee before making those blanket statements. They never turn over money in the general fund to free cash from the operating budget, but the school bus transportation does turn over into free cash. And they did close out over $300,000 last year into free cash. So I don't know if that helps or doesn't help.
Something else that we want to consider is we're only making a recommendation. It still needs to go past tomorrow night's meeting, and unless I'm wrong, if you correct me, please, Gene, if I'm incorrect, but we make the recommendation to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee ultimately is the one that's going to put it on the town warrant.
No, it will be on the town warrant, based on your recommendations.
Okay.
The Finance Committee will make their recommendation of whether or not they support the article.
Okay.
And when do you make your recommendation?
So we have tomorrow night we listen to Mike and
whoever.
Fitzpatrick. So 2 Fitzpatricks on the agenda tomorrow night.
Nice.
That should be good.
Hopefully the good ones first.
Yeah.
Wait.
And then but April 12th is our final public meeting where we're going to vote on part of the warrant. So we meet tomorrow night, and we're going to meet on the 4th of April. Last minute stuff, and April 12th is where we're going to vote our recommendations.
So the capital recommendations should be done today, so
Yeah.
that your, Mike and whoever department is having a project come forward, should be at your FinCom meeting tomorrow night.
Correct, yeah. And Gene, I think the Finance Committee takes the Capital Committee's recommendation up or down, right, as opposed to FinCom making its own list, right?
Yes, that's typically how it's done. You've already done your work, you've had your meetings, you've met with as this committee has met with the departments, it's unfair for the finance committee to be put in the situation of having to re-rank. They haven't had the benefit of meeting with the departments and being able to ask those questions. So they're trusting that you as a committee have done your work.
Here's the town warrant. I just have a question for them. That's what we had put on. This is the spring one from last year. So just,
Oh, from last year, so,
last year we had.
so that was
We had put
supposed
it
to
on
be like...
24,
Right, okay.
but we're doing 23 now.
Well, I'll be honest with you,
Just, so what I had just showed them is just what our projected capital items were. I think we only did we only have 3-year on there, which is in violation of our bylaw, but that's what we had. We need to do a 5-year plan.
I think engine one keeps getting kicked off the front of the line. I think there was a couple of years where, there was at least one year that it was the number one project, and just said, oh, we don't have enough money.
Yeah.
So that, it just keeps getting recycled to the, because it's a priority going on.
Given my explanation about what I was talking about with the stabilization fund and things like that, is there, and I know you get put on the spot and you have no time to digest it, what are your thoughts moving forward with the other, well, you have those 2 trucks, but you also have a brush truck in there somewhat along the line, a brush tanker truck or something like that. Is this something that we could make work? And do we get it, we need to get into a 5-year rotation somehow or
I
another.
absolutely think that, yeah, you could absolutely set something up where you put $100,000 a year away or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that part of it, but your equipment,
Right.
because if we do it,
Stuff coming down.
if we do it in a year or 2,
It's not going to work.
it won't work. So you would have to, if you acquired a truck now, would that satisfy your department for 5 years? It just, I
It would require, it would satisfy it as far as pumpers go.
Right. Right, but from a large apparatus purchase. So what I'm trying to do is avoid, whether it's there was discussion about a debt exclusion, or borrowing money or something like that. I don't necessarily agree that that's the right thing to do. I think it's like if you want to buy a house, you don't go buy a car ahead of time. You wait until after you bought the house and then you go buy your car. So if we're talking about these 3 large facilities, or combined or whatever it is, then we need to take that into consideration as to make sure that we keep ourselves in a good spot as a town. I'm sure Gene will make us aware of the fact if we're going off track a little bit in some of our thought processes going, whether it's debt exclusion or loans and stuff like that. We look for her for guidance in those things. But given all that stuff that I just said, back to the original question, if you were able to replace your most needed truck at this point, would you be able to span enough time to get that budget up to wherever it is? And even if it's 4 years down the road, maybe on a temporary basis, instead of it's 100,000, it's 125,000, and then so you have, in my mind, and it doesn't necessarily have to agree with everybody sitting here, if we could get a $500,000 bank account that would fund
I would say
these
that-
large things,
I would say that would
this is
definitely-
going to take the big pressure off of us. I mean, because you're always in front of the firing squad every time you come
Well, I'm aware.
for a lot. No, but for a large purchase like that, it's not any fault of yours. It's,
No.
it's the nature of what it is. So I'm trying to alleviate that problem. So
I don't really think this is a department head issue. I think this is a town priority of importance issue. I think the town needs to be educated on And combining that with, yeah, absolutely, there needs to be like savings account to put ahead for a rainy day or a future need.
Yep.
That's what I honestly feel that, but I also want to emphasize that the fire department applied for a grant for a fire truck. We've applied for all these grants, and when we can, we do, and we've been successful. So I don't want us applying for grants and being successful to be the determining factor on whether we get needed equipment, is what I'm saying.
So I, for one, have never experienced that conversation sitting on this committee the entire time that I've been on here.
As far as what?
As far as you applying, or any department applying for a grant to be a deciding factor of whether or not they would score high enough. That in my mind never even came into thought process with this. My whole thought process with this is trying to help your department, a department of the town, get to a point where this isn't such a contentious issue.
It's not a contentious issue, I'm just...
Well, it is for us as a committee trying to take, we have 3/4 of our budget is going to go towards one thing. So I'm trying to get creative and help.
And I'm agreeing with you.
Yep.
But I think we need to educate, and I fully agree with, no one's ever said, well, why don't we start a fund? And that's a solution. It's like, okay, let's save up for this. And we've tried to do our part where when we can apply for a grant and we're eligible, we certainly do to save the town money. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
but I
so
still think we need to...
In my mind, and I'm only one person out of 9,200 or 8,600 or whatever it is in this town, if you were successful and you acquired a grant for a new fire truck, I wouldn't say, all right, so we get that money out. No, in my mind, that would still go there because it offsets, because when you get to that ladder truck point thing, whatever it is that you call it, that's $1,080,000 last year in Howard's. So it's $1 million truck. So even if you're successful in getting an engine or a tank or whatever it is that you get, that money would still stay in my mind unless the 2/3.
That's what I'm saying. That's what your solution has, the solution has never been, let's start a rainy day fund. We're not going to, what I'm saying is, like, Shirley, you were on capital, I believe. I think you were a selectman when they got the ladder truck. But we had approved $300,000 for a ladder truck, and then we didn't use it on capital because we got the grant, which was a great thing. So I think your idea of putting something aside every year to build towards that, so it's not as huge of a whack when you, it's never been done. And I'm agreeing with you on what I think. And, we will always apply for grants to try and help, to make sure that, it's just that.
As a town resident, we expect every department that can actually apply for a grant to try to successfully get one. Gene's, and I'll get to you in a minute, Shirley. When I talked to Gene about the stabilization account, she was more in favor in getting into one. So again, getting back to my own thought process is, I look at the stabilization account as a savings account, a worst case scenario to help us stabilize the town.
Correct.
Right? So if we create a second account, all right, I have my savings account and I have this little account put aside so I can buy a new car, I can put a roof on the house, I can do whatever I gotta do. It's easier to take that money out of that secondary savings account. And it's an easier sell to the people of the town when you go to town meeting. And it's going to require a lot of continuing education to reaffirm every single time that, in our special stabilization account, we have X amount of dollars, just you keep it out there so people don't forget the history behind it. That's all. If you forget it, then it becomes a secondary stable. Why are we touching our savings again? So it's very important that we...
And that's the one piece I think that we haven't done.
Well,
but it's part of the solution. I think you need to do that at some point, because...
Could be political suicide on my part, but whatever. I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to ask the question. So that's my thought on it. So I still get back to the original question, is you need to try to help us, your department needs to try to help us to see if we can make it to that next milestone.
Well, that's why we keep applying for grants.
Right.
But the
Yep.
thing is, a lot of the grants are based on, well, how old is your, like our oldest apparatus, we got the brush truck because the Woody is 49 years old.
Right.
So, that's basically an antique.
Yeah.
So we got the brush truck because we were able to put down that we had a piece of apparatus was this old, and so it doesn't have all the safety features of a modern technology fire truck.
Okay.
That made us eligible. So we'll continue to do that. And the same thing, the only problem with grants is, like with our SCBA, when you get them on a grant, they all expire at the same time, and now you're back to that whole big nut. Where
Or they
some
require
departments
match.
put it in their budget to replace 4 a year. That gets confusing because it's sort of hard to have different technologies for the same equipment. It's easy for them to fall through the cracks.
Would everybody entertain a 5-minute stop and come up with your own little list as to what we're gonna, go ahead, Gene.
I just want to say, I don't want to sound like, and I don't think Mike's intending it, I'm not against a capital stabilization account. I look at things more generally. I don't like to restrict account with verbiage, and I like to be as broad as we can be so that when it comes to spending it or when the town spends it, that I'm not saying, nope, that wasn't allowed. So after we talked, I kind of relate things back to my own household, and I said, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I wasn't going to buy a car this year, $380 is going into the separate account, I'm not touching it. So I understood where he was coming from, and after he said that, I said, yeah, that makes sense. Even though you could use these other two mechanisms, I understand that people may have an easier time getting behind something called something different and retaining the stabilization account so it retains that 5% that the bonding agencies are looking for. We're not touching it. Neither one is wrong. I get where Mike's coming from, and trying to wrap. I think we have to be very careful on what we call it, and because, where the intent may be for a fire truck, there may be another need that comes into play, and we may need something else. I don't want to be restricted in its language. So that's the only thing that I would, when we get to that point, Mike, and when we set up that article, and I did put down the question of when it can be voted, I'd like to look at the language to make sure it's not a restrictive language, that it can be used for other things. It's better to have a broader language and narrow it down than have a narrow language and try to broaden it.
Okay, so, go ahead, Charlie.
So, Stabilization Fund, the original, why it was passed is because whoever got the most people to town meeting got their item, okay? And that there was no savings to speak of, to look forward. So we came forward and got a stabilization fund established, which is needed for good bond rating and for emergencies. I think it's a good idea to have something set aside, again, planning for, and as Jean has mentioned, not just a fire truck per se or whatever, but maybe a big highway or a big item. Say maybe, and this is in the future when we get ready to work on this article for presentation. So my say on that, when I come down to, and I've been thinking about this on the weekend too, and I am commenting and return to Ellie's comments, how did we choose?
Are you still, excuse me for a minute, are you still on the stabilization discussion?
No, I think she's on
No.
capital now.
All right, so before,
And that's
wait a
why-
minute, before you go into what you want to do with the capital item?
No, let me just finish. So that's why we also established a capital planning committee and a building and Facilities Committee, which we need members on. But this is why these committees were established.
Right. But I want to explain for the benefit of Gene and Kent, everybody else has already heard it, so you probably know what I'm going to say, so it's not as important anymore. So, November 7th, 2016, and I remember the date well because November 7th is when I whacked myself in the eye. So that's how I'm able to recapture that date all the time. The state had, or legislation had changed the Mass General laws, adjusted it. So multiple stabilization accounts, this is the guidelines that comes out of this, I have the whole thing printed out. Stabilization funds may be created for one or more different purposes. A fund may be created for a broad category of spending purposes such as any lawful purpose, capital budget purposes or purposes for which the community may borrow money. Stabilization fund may also be created for a specific purpose or project. For example, to acquire a new fire truck, ironically, or undertake a particular school construction project. Creation of funds requires 2/3 votes of the legislative body of the city, town, or district. The funds may be clearly defined the purpose of the fund. Changing the fund purpose. This is important because of Gene's comments about being a broader picture. Is the purpose of the funds may be changed at any later time by a 2/3 votes of the body. For example, if the community had established a fund in order to reserve money to acquire a new fire truck and a balance remains after the purchase, the body may change the purpose for a new savings objective. The only problem I have with that is this problem that his department has will not go away.
Right.
This is going to be a continuing thing forever unless they come up with a new way to fight fires.
That's probably why they used fire truck as an example.
Right, so, changing it, if you hiccup it at all, you're right back to the starting point again. And this is very important for the voting public, the all 17 to 200 people that show up, to understand that this is being set up to solve an issue. All we do is we address the symptom every 5 years in here. If we address this issue, then we're going to alleviate a big problem that we run into on a regular basis. Now, at some point, if we were in dire straits and we needed to readjust that money, it's a 2/3 vote at a town meeting that would change it. So the protections are in place. So we're not pigeonholing that money there and telling everybody, no, you can't touch it for anything. But if we're responsible in our thoughts when we go to town meeting and identify the fact that in 5 years that truck that is going to be at the 20-year mark is going to be needed replaced, we're going to be in a better position to replace that. If he acquires a grant as suggested, and he hiccups his own process and says, we acquired a grant, and our next scheduled truck is going to be a $300,000 truck, he could make the recommendation of his that he could offset that because he acquired a grant. So that's community effort. Department, people,
I
committees.
think that's the
and all
one
this
piece
other stuff.
we've lacked, quite honestly.
Right, but it's just coming up with a good plan to try to help this.
Absolutely.
I'm confused as to where we are as far as who ranks on what, so to make that clear, I'm not advocating for this truck, I'm not advocating against this truck, I'm just bringing these things up so we can make a
Yeah,
better
did you
decision.
finish? Yeah.
So Mike,
Yep,
don't mean to interrupt.
no, good, I'm all done with that. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that Gene and Kent had heard the same thing that I read
Sure.
last week.
No, I'm aware of the law.
Yep,
Yeah, and
Yep.
I am not against what you're saying.
Yep.
But it's easier for me to call it a general name, even though the intent behind it is a fire truck. You know, because you may choose next year that, yeah, we're going to fund the, you know, we're going to continue this plan and to have, instead of having separate, different accounts all the way across. It's just, you do require a 2/3 vote, and, you know, this year's town meeting may be a different constructive than 5 years from now. And I also agree with you about education, so I'm not against the process.
Yep.
I just, and it may be only used for fire, I would just leave the name very general, that's all.
Right, and I agree with, you know, mostly with what you say. My biggest problem is trying to eliminate the long-term problem.
No, I get
I don't
it.
see it ever going away, so if we don't come up with a proactive plan as to address it, every couple of years,
So-
we're going to have the same discussion.
If we could just take that one step further, maybe instead of saying it's for a fire truck, you say it's
Yeah.
for public safety?
No, I'm not in favor of saying it's for anything. I'm in favor of calling it a capital stabilization fund.
I'm not.
So, well,
No,
that's a
and no,
future discussion.
let's say why I wouldn't be, because we're going to be in the same position that we're in now. We might as well just let it roll over in free cash and continue the controversy each and every time.
So maybe we can't do anything with it.
We're not doing anything right now. This
So
is just,
we need to have
Yeah.
a good discussion
Yep.
about that.
Yeah.
But I would like to comment on Ellie saying, you know, she has a hard time as far as what is needed or how she's going to vote on issues. And so looking at this whole thing over the weekend, I think the one thing I have, and I look at items mainly for, maybe this is wrong, but safety issues,
yeah.
okay? And where does it fall? And maybe we need to look at our criteria as to how, and looking at maybe fine-tuning the way we,
and we're going to do that
Yes.
once we get past this process,
Yes.
because it's too late in this process to do that.
I agree.
Yep.
So where I go is, I like to look at, okay, the department head or whoever has applied for funding, why did they do this, okay, and how they raised it. So we have a list here saying department priority. But then when I get to my concern about safety overall anywhere in the town, I run into what the cafeteria situation is and how their priority came in here. 5, 4, 5, and 6. And yeah, I rated them a 3 or a 4 myself. And then I look at, all right, they looked at oil tanks. And then I forgot to look up, how old are those tanks? Because I myself had a tank replaced. Wasn't leaking, but a preventive.
Yep.
Well, I think they rated it a number 1. So that's where I get a little bit.
All right, so.
And I rated them a 4
Yep. You're specifically talking about the oil tank?
at the school.
Okay.
They're asking for 2.
So if you don't mind me
Sure.
commenting on that.
Yep.
When Jeff came in and he did his presentation on the oil tank,
Yep.
he has 10,000 gallon oil tanks underground. Because of our recent episode here in the town hall, everybody's panicking about anything in the ground, which, by the way, I asked the fire chief his opinion on it. He would prefer them in the ground, not from an environmental standpoint, but from a safety
Yes.
standpoint.
Yeah.
But when Jeff came in, I asked him, I said, so you have a 10,000 gallon tank underground, and you want a 10,000 gallon tank above ground, and he has oil usage anywhere from 13 to 30,000 gallons a year, depending on the school. How did you come up with the 10,000 gallon tank? And through discussion, it was, he was gearing that on his minimum delivery of 3,500. And each building requires a minimum delivery. It's not an aggregate one. They don't drive up the one driveway and stop at 3 buildings. Nope, that's 3 different deliveries. So the winning bid on the oil, they're doing it to their advantage. They want to come in with a tanker truck. That's what each compartment holds, is 3,500 gallons. So that's why they have that number. They want to come up with a tanker truck. I think they need to be a little more competitive on it. And do they really need a 10,000 gallon tank? Now, today's prices are $4 a gallon, so we have $40,000 here, we have $40,000 there, $40,000. Does that make logical sense? I don't know. I don't know what their contracts hold, but I think that they could reconsider it. I think one of the schools has a 5,000 gallon tank, doesn't it, Chief?
It might be
I think
primary.
Yeah,
I think
that
one
was
of,
so-
I
I
think
don't
one of
know.
them had a 5,000 gallon tank put in as a replacement, so why are we putting, it's just, we don't have enough information to support that, I guess, when we get to the end of the day. Go ahead, Ellie.
I have a question for Jean. We had this whole education on debt exclusions and overrides last time. And I remember several years ago where you were at the meeting and Mike Kaczynski was there, and you were, there was a debt being paid. So it was for a school or something like that. And you had said, well, gee, can we, I think it was, you wanted to use it for similar use, the stuff, the money that was left over. And so the debt would never go away, actually, as long as it was used for a comparable use. And so there's a debt going away in what, 2024? Is that the?
2023?
So an override is permanent. The
Yeah,
debt
yeah, yeah. No,
exclusion
no, I got, we went
Yeah,
through all
so
that.
the debt exclusion is for the
I'm okay
life.
with that, but.
So if there were any residual, I think you're talking about the residual balances in the school projects we use for something that could be borrowed for this similar length of time, and we
Right.
did. There is no, I don't think there's anything left of those funds.
Okay.
Because we utilized that, we did have a debt exclusion for the catch basin cleaner, and there was one other piece of equipment at the same time, and we ended up using it for those purposes. So we didn't end up borrowing. So we do have debt rolling off in 2023.
Yeah, okay, so that will be, there's nothing left in that we could use. Right.
So we had originally borrowed for the school project, and we had taken out 2 bonds. One was a $20 million, and we did a residual on the second one. And there was funds remaining because we had borrowed before the project was completed. So we had to transfer, though we couldn't use it to, for the operating budget or for something like this, because it wasn't for the length of time, the same length
Yeah.
of time. But we did clean those up.
Okay.
Similar to what we
that's-
do with
I
the-
was just looking to see if there was money left that we could use for the 140.
Yeah, it was explained to us that somewhere between 400 and 450,000 was rolling off in 2023 from the debt exclusion. So does
So-
that go back to the,
But that purpose of the debt, that's different. That would have to be revoted at the special, at a town meeting and in a ballot. What I'm referring to is the balances that we had from monies we received from bond proceeds, and that was a school project. So we borrowed the money, we did it in 2 borrowings. One, and we did it to maintain a certain level that we told the taxpayer their taxes were going to increase by, so we did it intentionally. To me, it's very important, the presentation was made, they said it was going to increase this amount, so we structured the bonding for that reason. When we did that, because the project lasted for so many years, we had a residual from the borrowing, and that had to be transferred. That's very different than paying off the debt. You know, they're 2 separate things. One, you had a balance in the account because the bond proceeds went in that account and you didn't spend everything. So you had a balance that we had to transfer to something else that we could borrow for. The second is just like, I paid off my mortgage. Now, I have money available because I'm not paying a mortgage anymore. So if we when COVID did a number of many things, but if we had planned, say, the public safety building, if that had fit into this so that I paid off my mortgage and I'm going to borrow for something this year, there's going to be no break in that. Like, I'm still going to pay out $1,000 a month. I'm just paying it, I was paying it for school, now I'm going to pay it for this. That's what he's talking about. So the debt rolled off, we didn't have anything that slid into that place so that you're not paying that same $1,000 out, and I'm using that as an example, every month. Now you're going to have a break, and I think that gets confusing. So I paid off the school, I'm not paying any debt, and then I'm going to have something taking place instead of leaving it level. So if you looked at the tax recap, if you look at the debt excluded part, and the part that's, when you pay your taxes, you have the, 2.5% plus new growth, you have that piece. But on top of that, you have any debt excluded, that piece is going to drop. So we were paying at this level, we're paying that $1,000 mortgage, now we're not paying anything, and then we're going to ramp it up again. We typically like those things to smooth out, but that's just not going to happen.
One other comment from me.
Sure.
You bear with me. We hear a lot, or off and on, we hear, oh, we've got all this business and stuff coming in, and that's great. I, for one, am very cautious. I don't like spending for what is projected. I want to spend with what we have. So that's where I am with
I'm in agreement with you. If we don't have it and it hasn't been proved out, then we don't have it. So I can't go on what's coming next year or the year after, because it's not here yet.
Right.
If I did that in my business, I'd be in serious trouble, because even though you go through the process, some people don't make it to the finish line, whether it's their choice or my choice as a business owner. So I can't count on that revenue until it actually gets signed.
So we're going on,
I just also want to give Ken some information. To help him through that. I had caught 4 or 5 different department heads in there. That's why you'll see on the ranking the system. So I had caught Adam. He had thought that and you can see, actually, you can see how he ranked it. 1, 2, 3, 4. He did it in sequence for his things that he had on there. He felt that he needed the paving of the parking lot, but the other 3 he could push off for another year, which will cause a new problem next year, because we're going to have compounded problems. So it's easy to say we'll push off till next year, but now everything really gets backed up. The mapping system, it's going to come in lower than they thought, so that's going to be moved to within their own budget. It's going to be multiple departments. The diesel exhaust system, we were told that for the fire department, that was going to be moved into the budget. The town.
so is that your understanding?
The,
Diesel exhaust system?
yes. Yep, we're going to pay for that through the budget.
The climate control storage room and vault area, talking about utilizing space within the structure. So that got pushed off until next year at the earliest, because it's got to be properly designed and scoped out before you could actually put a value to it.
And some of it could be paid, may be able to be paid for from the ARPA money. That's what my notes say.
Yeah, there was a lot of different conversations about the opera money. There is an outside consultant at some point, I think, and need a little more town involvement to have an understanding of whether it requires a committee or something like that. to figure out where those funds go, but it's like free cash. Everybody sees it, and they're all grabbing at the brass ring. So until that comes forward, I don't see that as a funding source for us.
I agree.
The building department archives of the records upstairs, that's going to be moved to budget as well. It's already been corrected as the phone system because it was called paving for 30,000. That's actually our phone system that was on there. Matt's 363,676 is a duplicate of John's $360,000 request on matching the Chapter 90 funds. So I just want to make sure Ken was up to speed as to what we talked about at the last meeting.
Mike,
Yes.
there was some uncertainty about the amount for the security cameras and server under the police department?
Okay, so the security cameras for all that, I actually seen Mark Dunleavy late Friday afternoon.
Okay.
And that is all the cameras within this building. It's not just the fire department, I mean, just the, sorry.
I understand.
The police department outside, but they need to do something with those particular cameras out there because of the explanation from the police chief of the police business that they have to conduct and be in a safe zone for exchanging.
No, I understand that, but there was some amount, as far as the amount of, right now it says 35,000, but either it was, yeah, there was, whether it could be, or was it on the fire department cameras, whether it could be somehow connected with the,
Yeah, so that, you're confusing the two of them. So
Okay.
the police department, that for their best guess, that's accurate, but that encompasses
The whole-
cameras within
Yeah.
the municipal center as well. The fire department, we had talked about, because the fiber optics is connected from the fire department to the town hall to the school to connect all the antennas, and we have the extra bandwidth that would be used for, just for the security. We want to mix a bunch of stuff in there. Potentially the fire department would be connected to that. What the cost of that is, we never discussed.
right. But the 35,000 is pretty definite regarding the police department.
From what Mark Dunleavy had told me on Friday, Brandon may be at have some input into that if he has any knowledge on it.
I know that number is pretty solid with,
Yeah.
based on my conversation with Mark.
And what I described was accurate. It encompasses the municipal center as well.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely need additional and replacing cameras around this building.
And that, not only safety, that is under, in my opinion, safety and,
Yeah, it's all for, it's
And it's
security
safety.
and safety
Yeah.
is what that would be. There's nothing else. It's,
yeah.
everybody's too busy to just watch people, so I
Yeah.
don't think it would be used for that. So we have one recommendation from Mr. Vanderberg. He started off, so we're gonna keep nudging, trying to get this thing cleaned up. He suggested that we use the matching of the Chapter 90 funds of 360, replacing engine number 1 of 750, and replacing the two appliances in the, one in the middle school and one in the high school. And yeah, you had a total of 1 million something.
1134. So that's just
What
an
was the
observation,
total?
it's not a motion.
I'm sorry,
No, just a recommendation. No, and don't worry, we're not gonna,
what was your total?
1134.
1,134,000.
And what did you say we had?
We had the 360, which is the road paving.
No, yeah.
What
No,
was it,
what-
1.1, I think.
I think it was 1.
Oh, what our amount is?
Yeah.
Our target numbers are 1.1 million.
And you had it at 8 something.
No, I always use 800,000, so.
You
Because
always
you're
use it?
cautious.
Yeah, I use it at 800,000, I'm conservative, because if I tell you less, you're not gonna spend it all. If I tell you everything I got, you're gonna get dessert. So, just trying to eliminate the fact that you're gonna order dessert at the onset.
I always like dessert.
So Dick, you're saying at the school, you're looking at which one?
The last two items.
The last two.
So they can steam that broccoli.
Yes. It's more nutritious, it's safer.
Oh,
And
said
you're
she would
looking
do
at the convection oven?
yes.
Yep.
We can't go over that one.
We can go over anything we want. We make a recommendation. It's up to the voting public to tell us that we're crazy or not. To put a realistic approach to it, we have a guideline in which to use. Last year, I just flat out refused to go through this process without knowing what we had to spend.
Sure.
So it helps us all, because otherwise we feel, yeah, everybody have everything, and then we find out that we don't have any money, so.
Right, I would agree with Mr. Dannenberg with his 3 items, but I would like to add 2 others into it, to push us over 1.2.
Yeah. No, but this is all part of the process.
Right, but, I'd like to see the social center get their parking lot repaved, which is, I think, the 90K, and then the municipal center, police department can get added to the new system, put in instead of 35K, so whatever that math is, somewhere a little less than 1.3, just looking at it off the top of my head.
I would, best case scenario, like to see those 2 as well.
Right.
If,
That's what I'm thinking, best case scenario, I'd like to see those 5 items, if possible.
All right, so why don't we do it this way? I have Mr. Vandenberg and I have Mr. Ogier. Shirley, can you tell me what your recommendations are? What I'm doing is, and we're gonna just do it this way, because we gotta cut bait and
That's
get out
it.
of the boat here. So, what I'm doing is I'm putting your initial next to the numbers, and I'm gonna see who's gonna end up where, so, it is what it is, so, and for no other reason, I'm just doing it in a rotation.
And I agree with you and Vandenberg. So I know it's over.
So I know that.
Your input.
So the difference is Brandon added 2 more items onto
Yeah.
Mr. Vandenberg. So are you agreeing with his 2 added items?
Yes.
Ellie?
I'll do the roadway paving. I'll do the fire engine. I'll do the cameras, the police cameras, and that's it.
Okay, wait a minute. Mr. Vincent, please.
I would go with the highway paving, the engine, the schools for the cooking appliances for the schools, the cameras for the police, and the paving for the senior citizens.
Ben?
Same as Brandon.
I should have just said that.
Yeah.
Same traffic.
No, well. Wait a minute.
So now we have to do a
No, one
process of
second.
elimination
Yeah,
and
okay.
negotiate, huh?
No, we get mad at
No,
you and say,
no,
can we
no,
do this?
No, we're gonna see what this is. Do you have a calculator handy?
Cat does.
Oh, you do?
What do you want?
90,000,
All right. Yep.
360, 750, 35, you doing them, did you put all the zeros in, or you just doing?
I think so.
Okay. 9474.
94,074?
No,
No, 474,000. So if you only did
$4.
9,470?
Yes.
474
Okay.
and 15,574.
Now,
1.26044. But I might have been off by $4 because that one, I didn't have 4, I had 70.
So is
Three,
it
yeah, right?
1.260?
1 minute, Ellie. I just finish their math class and then we'll,
How much, was I off by $3?
yeah, but this is,
Yeah.
their stuff is not important. Is the school, I mean, this all doesn't take effect until July 1st.
Correct.
The school needs these cooking things right now, or can they wait?
they're in operation right now.
And they're,
As with the aging fire truck and they can't get light bulbs and all this other
Correct.
stuff, she is faced with the same issue that
she understands that this,
the technician that's been coming out, they no longer have access to the replacement part. So the last time they had it fixed, it was just a little plumbing leak situation. They were able to correct it. So if it needs a component, they're in
okay,
trouble.
but they're just understanding that they're not getting them
Correct.
until July 1st.
Yeah. And just as another interest point there was that school, the high school uses a emergency shelter as well, so they'd be cooking for the
Yep,
public.
as during the pandemic, it was very instrumental in getting us through that.
So I think
Gene,
it's
we're in
important.
fiscal, and just excuse me for asking these questions, we're in fiscal year 22 right now, and 23 starts July 1st.
Correct.
So for your clarity,
Yeah, no, I
They wouldn't be able to
know
get it
this. I'm just
until-
wondering if the school knows this.
they wouldn't be able to get it until, well, they're gonna figure it out real quick.
Well, that's why they can, because this is for next.
They should know better than me as to what fiscal year we're in.
Well, you know.
So
Well, it gets-
I totally messed up my whole report last year, but I got saved by the bell.
It was,
I've had the same thing happen to me.
My mind's calendar year,
Yeah.
Correct.
and then I have two different corporations, and one calendar year ends in September 30th, and one's in
December.
12/31, and then you guys threw all this stuff at me, so now I'm all messed up.
well, and the report does span, because the W-2s are in calendar year. It's just, it's not, some are reported in fiscal, some are reported in
Yeah.
calendar, so there was no mess up there.
So right now, Gene, and I'll come right back to you, Mr. Vandenberg. Right now, Gene, we have recommendations for $1,260,000 and $260,044. How does that affect our free cash allotment for capital?
What was the number, 11?
1260044.
If that math is wrong, it's Kent's fault.
It's probably off by $3, right on. Because the 9,470, I put 470 and it was 474.
Yeah.
So add $4 to that. So it's like
1260048.
048.
I knew I should add you to it, Ben.
Yeah, I probably would have been wrong too.
And
Borrow his
and you were given a budget of 11, right?
Correct.
So I think that's a question for Matt as to whether or not there's any additional funds for that. Can I ask what, I just want to clarify something I had said earlier. We still have a small residual in the long-term capital account of, I believe, $21,000 that used to be for the partial roof replacement of the elementary school. So I have to see if those funds came from an original borrowing. We have to wait till we can borrow for like items. If it came, if any component of that was from free cash, then we could use it as funding towards something else. So you have to see where the money came from and whether or not it was originally a debt excluded project before we can use that. We had cleared out all of the other things. The municipal center's first floor windows, we had used a component of free cash, so that's why we were able to transfer that. So I just wanted to clarify that. So what items are you looking at?
So his number is, he was correct, he's off by $4, so it's 048, not 044.
Okay, so what?
So he's looking at, the committee, not he, the committee is, majority has chosen the social, the parking lot at the post office social center for $90,000. matching the Chapter 90 funds at $360,000. The replacement of engine 1 for $750,000. The replacement of the security cameras for the police department of $35,000. The replacement of the convection oven at the middle school for $9,474, and the replacement at the high school of the steam jacketed kettle at $15,574. That actually worked out pretty good. I was stressing over this whole nonsense of how we were gonna figure out what to do, but I think by just going around and having everybody just write down what your thoughts are, and then we have a majority of initials, and it is what it is.
So really, the only one you have any flexibility as far as doing is the roadway paving. Because if you fund less money, you do less roads. You can't buy a piece of a fire truck. That's the only reason why I'm saying.
We can get them to light, and we can get them.
But, so the, so
Like
I
that Johnny
guess,
Cash song? We
I guess
stole the
my-
Cadillac one piece at a time?
Come on, let you finish.
so I would ask Matt, if you, and this is the committee decision, you know, if there is not room within that 1.1 to get to 1.2, then the only thing you can do is reduce the allotment of the roads and still maintain the integrity of your vote.
Yep.
So maybe,
I'm gonna, this is crucial for us to make up our mind this morning, so I'm gonna listen to Mr. Vandenberg, and then I'm gonna go over and see Mr. Wojcik and see if he can join our meeting for 5 minutes.
So I have a question for you, Gene. So let's say tomorrow night, the capital committee comes to finance committee and says we want 1.2, and the finance committee says no. We're not going to approve it because it's too much.
You would either recommend, support it or not.
yeah, your vote is to recommend.
So it's either recommend or not recommend.
Correct.
It still goes forward to the town meeting.
Correct.
It's just the finance committee weighs its opinion. I got it, okay.
Yeah.
So we can't either approve it or disapprove it.
Well, you recommend it.
We
though.
recommend it, or
And,
that's
you know,
different though, isn't it? Yeah.
And people look for your recommendations because, again, you've done your work through the budget season, and they look to see how you voted and as to the reason why you may not have voted for it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It seems to me like this is the most we've had to actually spend in a while, too, quite honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I think we're trying to sneak the small ones in, too.
Well, I think they're important. because-
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at, in this day and age, not just, fire truck for safety or whatever, but it's opened up a bigger area here because we need to have cameras. We need to have stuff that sees like what's happening in the schools.
We need to not be carrying boiling hot water to pour it in somewhere when we can just use a steamer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can get burned with steam too.
Correct,
But
yep.
but not, I mean, it's a different world out there as far as safety. There's more encompassing.
So I don't know how much this changes as far as the fire truck goes, but I thought, I aimed a little high just because I know what I got for quotes last year, and I
Yeah.
tried to aim high just because of the inflation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it could be, there's a possibility, we won't use all that, I don't know.
Well, then, I put it on the pay-as-you-go capital, so I don't close that out. If anything over $100, I leave on the list. That was the
Right.
list you reviewed last meeting I was at. Right, and it will become available for the next project.
Yeah, that was a question for you. How hard is that 750? Could be 7, right?
It could be 7, and like I said, the last time we quoted, he gave us in the area of 650. But I quoted high because I don't know what, in this time span with the being able to get products, what's the word I'm looking for, that
bids.
Supply chain.
Yeah.
With the supply chain, I don't know how much things
Yeah.
might have gone up, you know?
Right.
But I'm pretty sure we can do it in that number, for sure.
So when you went to firetrucksrs.com,
No, last year, we had a guy come out and quote, and he did a whole spec on it and everything, and, you know, we just missed the mark here, but I'm pretty sure he was around 650. So, you know, there's some flexibility there, you know, I think.
We hope.
We hope, yeah, exactly. But that's why I gave it a high number. Because to do a spec right now, people are very cautious to do a whole lot of work on something, then get underbid or something like that, you know what I'm saying? And I think, quite honestly, we'd still have to go out to bid for it, so people are gonna have to bid, so.
I got another question, Gene, for you. You know, we've talked about stabilization funds. I'm looking at the Mass document here. Gene, it says, an example of a special purpose stabilization fund would be one created to supplement state reimbursements received under Chapter 90 to cover the cost of an ongoing street improvement program. If you did that, would the wording just simply have to be stabilization fund to dovetail with Chapter 90? Would that be
But
good enough?
that's why I don't like restrictive accounts.
Because it says you can add, you can,
You can,
But that would be just roads.
it is roads, or bridges, or
Yeah.
anything that Chapter 90 can be used for. But if you're gonna put $100,000 a year, why not just do the roads and do whatever they could to supplement that year's budget? Why would you go through the exercise of putting in the stabilization and not actually do the
Well,
road repairs?
because I think we talked about this at the Finance Committee, everybody feels we got to come up with a long-term plan to fix our roads in our town.
Right, but
Right?
if
Why wouldn't this be a way to preserve some money for that?
you could, but if you can give John 100,000 today so that he actually does the road work, or put in an account for tomorrow, you know, he could use that 100,000 to do actual road work and
But-
supplement the 363,000 he's getting.
But I thought the sense was that oftentimes road money is the first sliced at the town meeting, where people will say, yeah, I guess we can live another year with our road so bad. So money that you wanted to do that ends up going elsewhere.
Yeah, well,
Well-
only went to the bridge building.
But if you did it for road repair, it would go for road repair
Correct.
and not get siphoned off to
Riddlebrook.
something else,
Correct.
right, or not?
But you're making a conscious, like, you're talking about that $1.2 million right now,
Right.
right? And you were given a budget of $1.1 million. If you want to put $100,000 away for a fire truck, then you really only have $1 million, because you spent that $100,000
Right,
and you
right.
chose to put it into another account. So you just reduce the money you have available for this year. If you put money for the roads, the same thing. But the roads I see a little different. You can't buy a piece of a fire truck, but you can do crack sealing or a piece of a road. You don't have to wait to save a bunch of money to do something.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking more long-term, that if every year the capital committee said we're going to put, of all the money we get from free cash, we're going to put some of it aside for a stabilization fund for a specific purpose, whether it's big equipment,
Yeah.
whether it's road repair, et cetera, et cetera. If you wanted to do that going forward, to have it dovetail with Chapter 90 money, would it have to be worded specifically that way, or could it be a special stabilization fund that just said highway related?
See, and if it was me doing
Yeah,
that
how would you
particular
word it,
road,
I guess?
then I wouldn't treat it, that's what I'm saying, I wouldn't treat it like that. I would say, okay, I have $1.1 million for capital. I'm choosing to put $100,000 into capital stabilization. I'm choosing to do just $100,000 to fund the operating budget from free cash to the highway construction and maintenance account to do roads. So you're increasing that operating budget to offset the amount that you're getting from chapter in that year. So you're using the same bucket of money, but you're not waiting to do it. You want the roads done now, because they can be done now. You can do a section of a road. You can't do a section of a truck. That's why you're saving for that piece.
Yeah.
I just see them differently. It's like, if you're looking at this, that's the only variable here.
So
is
it's more
John-
of an operating expense, doing paving roads?
increasing their operating expense, choosing to use your capital budget to increase their operating expense for road repairs. So you're doing the same thing, but you're just giving it to the highway department to do road repairs to match Chapter 90 now.
Okay, let's take your house economy, for instance. So let's say you know you're going to need a new car and you're going to need a new roof.
Yeah,
So you set up two different funds. And every month you put some money in your car fund and some money in your roof fund. And 3 years later, you could get your new car and get your new roof.
yeah, and I guess
Can we do a road fund and a big equipment fund?
you could set up multiple things, but I guess,
Yeah, big equipment could be a payloader or a fire truck.
that's what I'm saying. I would not be restrictive in it. I think for me, I don't know how to explain it differently to you, but a road can be done as sections. A roof, well, I guess a roof could be too, because we're doing it here, but a fire truck cannot be bought in segments. I'm buying a fire truck, I'm buying one thing. But if you gave $100,000 to John to be used for road, he will choose to do a section of the road. He won't wait to spend it. He doesn't need to wait to spend that. And it's better that he doesn't, because the condition of the road worsens over time. So you want him to be able to utilize whatever money you can give him now. Like, you want that. Like if you were saying, of this $1.1 million, I'm going to put $100,000 here. I'm going to just give, I don't want to spend it on this type of capital. I'm just going to give John an extra $100,000 in the operating budget. He can do that road repair today so the road doesn't get worse.
Can't you fund a stabilization from the general budget though too?
Yes.
You could have it be a line item, so it wouldn't
Yes, you
take
can do
money
a
from what we're
transfer.
doing. If our town budget is $32 million, take 1% of it and put it into a road fund every year. You could do that.
You can, but you want him to, I guess my point is, you want him to spend it, not save it. You want him to do the road repair today so the roads don't get worse.
So if you look at the highway study, what do they think the sticker price is going to be to fix all our roads? Like $20 million.
That's crazy.
How do we raise that?
Well, you would earmark
Sorry about
or
that.
put aside.
Just had to wait for
Like,
him to finish
instead
the
of spending $1.1 million on
Get
this
our
type of
answer.
stuff, you put it, you give it to John to do the work now. Or you can use opera funds for it. I mean, there's, and
But those run out though, right?
they are one-time funds. But that's why I think there should be an opera committee. That's another source of funding that I
What did
think,
you just call it?
opera funds,
Opera?
ARPA.
Oh, ARPA. Okay.
That was Oprah, Ally.
Yeah.
No, it was actually opera, O-P-E-R.
Oprah's going to write us a check.
Yeah.
So to add to Dick and Jean's conversation, this highway, the roadway paving, that's a new item on capital. And yeah, it's needed, and that's part of learning from the highway study. But
Okay, before you cut it, I have a question for Gene. It might eliminate all this stress. What was the amount of certified free cash?
The amount that it was, or the
Yeah.
amount available?
The amount that what he used for his calculations.
I'm sorry.
The amount of the free cash that was certified.
The amount that was certified was $3,439,772. However, we spent $743,517.95 already
would you?
at the fall town meeting, leaving a balance available of 2,696,254.05.
What was the 700,000 spent on?
That was $75,000 for Simon Fairfield ceiling repairs, $35,000 for OPEB, $40,000 for supplemental AFG grant for the brush truck, $46,800 for the municipal center stormwater system, $200,000 for the municipal center oil spill new day tank and pump, and $346,717, and I believe that's the article you were referring to earlier, for capital.
For what?
Those.
Oh, the last year's capital.
the fire, those were all at the November town meeting, where you had that, I thought.
I'll be back.
But I will tell you that free cash will be used to,
Operating budget?
we have to bring the snow and ice, we have to rectify that situation, so we'll be using free cash for that as a funding source, and I think the school.
I couldn't copy your figures fast enough.
Oh, you want to, I don't know if you want to copy that, but.
Yes.
So Gene, your sense of saving up a big fund for highway doesn't make sense because if you got it, you spend it, right?
For roads.
More or less?
For roads.
For roads,
I want to do it so that they're not going to deteriorate anymore. So if you have money to give to the highway department, I want them to do it today. I want to be able to fix those roads today. I don't want to wait and do them.
And not build up a fund that they later.
So did we vote for that 363 to go into capital every year towards
No,
highway? I thought that's what we were asking,
no, just to match,
just to match it this year?
yeah.
I thought it was a recurring.
Should we take it, should it not be a capital item? Should it be on the operating budget?
Well, I think you have more discussion.
I thought you couldn't do that on the operating budget. You
I
had to
think-
do it with chapter 9.
I think you need to put it as capital, just have it a recurring item every year, you know, but I wouldn't put it in, my whole point is I wouldn't put it into a stabilization account, wait till it's still on money, and then spend it. I would just say, you know what, every year I just want to, out of my capital item, I'm going to give John X amount of dollars, you know, just take that
I
off the top.
thought Matt's recommendation was to do that number every year.
It could be, and that could be what his intent is,
So
but not to wait to save it, to do it.
Right.
To just put it as part of.
I think that's what his request was. I didn't,
Wait.
Isn't that what happened with the tree budget? Because the tree budget used to be minimal, and then it was raised.
With the tree budget, it was raised, and then we also, once we brought through the certified, we actually supplement that budget because.
it's like the same with civil service for the
Yeah.
most part. We're putting more money towards it.
But they have a.
Civil defense,
budget.
rather.
Civil, yeah, civil service.
Civil, I said civil defense.
Okay, that gives everybody-
Well, no, I don't need a close-up.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just.
Highway
got it.
maintenance.
No, I want the figures. Thank you.
like repair, all this other stuff.
Did you get
There's
more money?
really no separate
No.
item in that.
Oh, yeah, for capital stuff, yes. Your
Yeah, well, they don't.
your
do-
figure is, he was looking at the gross amount,
Well, but
so
that's
your
why-
net amount of the 26996
Right.
So.
is what
Just put more.
I had thought before, so he's comfortable with
There's no
the,
place in here for road.
I'll wait until the committee does, that way we don't have a,
Well, no,
Conversation.
but,
So
that's
why
only,
that's why
all right, let's reel it back in,
Okay.
because it's hard for people to, the minute taker especially, to keep track of what we're doing. My fault, I got way off track with some of the stuff. So anyways, talking with the town administrator, he's comfortable with the $1,260,048 as a proposed capital expenditure. So if everybody,
Say that
if
figure
it,
again, Mike?
$1,260,048. So 1260048.
Thank you.
Yeah, you just redid it,
No, I didn't. I just added $4.
So, if Gene, if you have any red stars, if you could please give one to our fire chief for correctly coming up with the figure.
I'll give you a smiley sticker.
Alright. So if we're in agreement, our recommendation for this year's 2023 capital budget will be repaving the post office adult social center parking lot
Yeah.
for $90,000. Matching the Chapter 90 funds per the highway superintendent's request of $360,000.
Yep.
The replacement of the engine one, the 1999 fire truck that he has, for $750,000. They replace the security cameras, which It says police department, but just so it's clear, it's the police department and the municipal center, because if it's not worded properly, they'll only be able to do the police department. So,
You're learning.
oh yeah, no, I'm paying
It won't cost
attention.
$35,000.
After I went through the window shades of
Oh, so-
windows over here.
So did you go back to talk to Matt and you both found money?
No, I never found money in my life.
Kent.
So so that was a $35,000 item. Again, that's for the police department and the municipal center security cameras and server.
Yeah.
Because if the server's not mentioned, it won't get it. The school department has a request for the Douglas Middle School convection oven of $9,474. And they also have a request for the Douglas High School steam jacketed kettle for $15,574. It's been an exhausting meeting for everybody. I don't know if you want to jump into the 5-year plan, or do we want to do it at a later date? We have to do it over the next couple of weeks.
Don't we have to move this and accept this to make a
Yeah, no,
recommendation?
we're going to do all that. I mean,
Well, before noon?
why,
Can we just do it now, or do we?
Why, we
keep
turn
talking
into a
about it?
pumpkin at noon time? Or?
No, we just have.
Okay, so
That's
per
after.
Ellie's suggestion, I just listed the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items totaling $1,260,048. 1260048.
So moved.
I have a motion by Shirley, seconded by anybody.
I second that.
Seconded by Brandon Ogier. Any further discussions? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Unanimously recommended that capital budget.
It's over,
So,
that one. 5-year plan, right?
5-year plan, do we
Is there
want to
one-
jump into this now, or do we, there's a lot there to digest and go into?
I think we should wait.
Or we want to have another meeting on Friday at 10 o'clock, or next Monday at 10 o'clock? Next Monday at 10 o'clock might work,
Because I have 2 copies of it.
week from today.
Okay,
I can do Monday.
Week from today works for me.
It works for me as well.
I guess so.
Ellie said it unanimously, yes, she is available on Monday at 10 a.m. Shirley?
Yeah, Monday,
Brandon?
that's the 4th
Yes.
of
These
April.
Mondays
Yep.
have worked out pretty decent, huh?
Okay. And we don't have any FinCom. You have a FinCom meeting on Monday?
Tomorrow night and then Monday at night, so.
You know,
This is capital at 10, right?
capital at 10 o'clock.
April 4th.
So what I'm going to do is just leave the room again, and I'm gonna go ask Lisa to make 2, 4, 6, 7 copies of what our last proposed 5-year plan, it's a 3-year plan, was, so then you have that to use in your judgment for next Monday.
Kent, you think eventually open burning permits will be disallowed by the state because of fire risks and things, or in
No.
rural Mass it will stay?
No, it'll stay.
Will it?
Yeah, it'll stay. Again, I think DEP more regulates it now. I mean, you have to call the fire department to get it,
Right.
but the first year DEP was, saying, oh, you can't do, it's all pollution oriented, quite honestly. I just don't see open burning going away
I would hope
for brush. No, I mean,
to be
especially,
more confined
well,
because,
especially agricultural, Agriculture you can do year round.
and we
You can
don't,
have huge piles.
Yes,
we,
exactly.
well, we like to let it deteriorate.
Right.
It's good for the
Yes.
animals.
Yep.
It's less
Can I sit
polluted.
next to you for a minute?
Correct, yep.
Big.
I still would
They do understand, was I talking in circles? Sometimes I know when
understand.
this
would be good for the grass.
It is
old
what
kind
you
of
want.
Farmers used to
You want to
do
use it, you got
I
it.
remember
Yeah.
back,
Oh, yeah.
even years ago, when you'd have something burns off and it grows back all that more
And the
luscious.
highway, main,
Yeah, they used to do that up in Rockport. They
Yep.
burn the whole.
No, that's what
you know,
we,
lose
well, it would have been under,
But
But now you have a lot
there's
of,
no way in the
we
regular.
call it wildland urban
Line
interface.
items.
where
It
you've
would have
got
been-
developments up against the
well,
woods.
you're doing it as.
We almost had one get away
Which is fine.
up on Downs Road last year.
Yeah.
Started on South Street,
Under
almost burned all the way over, remember
many
that?
years.
Yeah.
And it was used.
Yeah, that was the one, the garage,
So
the garage
money
that
was
got going
reduced.
too.
Free.
You were working, weren't you? Yeah.
I called my daughter and told her because his are,
Yeah.
oldest have it,
And then,
but they've got it under
Yeah,
But that can happen here,
notice
that's it.
really has gone up.
and when it gets dry,
This is what we voted.
Well, I think you were on the board when we had a 600-acre brush fire.
Report.
yes, we were,
Yeah, I remember that.
We had water drops coming from
yeah.
helicopters, all kinds of stuff.
Okay, great.
So Mike, also, we at this 5-year
Maybe by tomorrow.
meeting, we are.
That's next week.
Yeah.
That's
Are we
Oh, by the way,
gonna
there a
say
way you
how we rate the
change
sheets
you
till
want
we
to get rid of some of these other years.
start on the
Twenty-
next year's
Yeah,
capital?
so let's just look at that real quick, that,
We're gonna get in trouble.
that adjustment to the rating plan, and then we'll discuss it at the next meeting. I'm just gonna tell you what my thought process was on it.
Is this what you just handed out?
No, he handed out this.
You got one, don't you?
I was talking to you.
Well, that's why you didn't get one.
Okay.
Should have been in your seat. See me after class.
Okay, all right, lines on the board.
I will not leave my seat again 50 times.
Clap the erasers.
Poor record taker, sorry, apologies for all our deviations here.
And that apology came from Shirley Mazinski.
But nobody
So-
else?
That's just a 5-year plan that, it's a 3-year plan that was done last year's Springtown meeting, just so everybody has it for reference, so you, the goal is to try to be somewhat consistent as to what we're doing. So we don't confuse the public any more than we are.
So in FY '22, those 4 things were done, and FY '23 is what we just voted. No, we didn't.
No, the mower attachments wasn't done, the sidewalk plow wasn't done, the Gilboa Main Street upgrade wasn't done, and the highway truck wasn't done.
Those things that are in gray were done. No?
No, it's just pretty
I
new.
don't know, were they?
No.
No, that's just to help you keep
Yeah,
the line.
just so you could follow along. Yeah,
Thanks.
that's just a, yeah.
And this year, did any of these 5 things get done? Is it, oh, no, we're not, we're in 22
No.
right now.
Nope.
Okay, so,
No,
and we didn't,
I think we'll end up with a problem with that highway truck, but it'll remain to be seen, I guess.
Should we talk about, if we have our next meeting, discussing more about putting that earmarker in to save $100,000 a year?
Oh, for that, we're gonna have to do a little work on that, and we'll have to have, I don't think we'll have that on next meeting, because it's not gonna go on this ballot anyways. And I would want involvement from the town administrator and the finance director as to how to go about properly doing that. And we don't even know if it can go on the fall or next spring. But rest assured, I will not quit on it until I get an absolute no from anybody, because I am persistent. So anyways, getting back to our grading thing, what prompted me to look at this was the fact that I was confused with it last year. And we had another member that had the same confusion that I had the previous year. So we went through this whole process. So you have that packet that I gave everybody. It's at the back of your packet, so you can follow along. There won't be a quiz at the end, but at least, right there, the last one. take the, it's done in a packet, all put together.
Oh, yeah, but I messed it up already.
Yeah, but the final in the packet, all put together.
You're talking about this month?
Yes.
I think you must change it.
So that's the stuff, this thing? No.
No? Ellie, you might have to stay after class too. No, that's not it.
These are things that I found.
I should have another one.
I think I'm staying after class too.
Oh, the second page of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just take this one, this is a clean one.
Oh, I don't like clean
You haven't
stuff.
scribbled on yet. We didn't get to the end of it. Okay, so we have that grading sheet out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have yours? Yep.
It's the second of the 2 pages. Just-
Go to the very first page.
First page, okay. That's this one.
Oh,
The very, and as you see, it has priority 1, score 4 points, and then down the bottom, must do.
yeah.
Okay. This is my understanding of what I figured out. The score 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point should be eliminated to that, and then that would be the sheet that would be given to, up until this point, would have been, it should be given to the department heads. We should only see score 1, 2, 3, and 4 points. Priority should be taking off, and the must-do, should-dos, and could-dos should be taking off.
Oh, I like that part.
Go to the second, wait, you don't have to write nothing, Jeff. Wait a minute, follow along. Take that pen away from Miss Chesbro.
Oh, I,
Go to the second page, and what I did is I just cleaned it up a little bit.
okay.
And also, if you notice, I took the bullet points off and I relabeled them with A, B, C, and D, right?
D.
Or A and B if it's in score 1. Go to the third page.
Widget.
Now, this has been, that term has been taken out of Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, if anybody ever watched it, when he was in his business class. So anyways,
Flux capacitor.
our fictitious project is going to be a widget, and the department gave it a priority too. The cost is $1,000, so now,
$1.
Wonderful.
$1, okay, good catch, it was just a check, and just testing you, Ellie. So the last 2 columns is what we come up with, okay? And the replacement is needed to maintain and continue level of service for the residents of the town of Douglas. And then I rated it a 1B. Go back to your second page of your score sheet, and you'll understand why I did what I did. So 1, right, and go down to B, right? And this would be critical for the departments to do this as well, because then we would have insight as to what their mentality was when they graded that. Because it's too vague when you're jumping all over this to understand what it is. So, is a desirable project requiring debt planning or other funding strategies due to its size, scope, and or lack of urgent factors as noted that is not available at the time of ranking. All right. What prompted me to do this, to make up this little thing, is when I looked at the projects as a whole, and I looked at the highway department the new building, I ranked it a 4. Then I read this again, and I changed my ranking to a 1. And I changed it to a 1 because of B. Right? So even though it doesn't rank high in the point category, it's still very valuable. Maybe B belongs in column 1 with the 4. Maybe we want to look at that and try to move these things around so it makes more logical sense as to how we're grading these things. So that's what I want everybody to think about. Just look at this little example that I put together, and I think we may come up with a good proposal for next year's grading, and as well as if you looked at back to our request from the departments now, the school did the same exact thing that the highway and the building maintenance did. They ranked them in sequential order instead of on a priority list. They should have, she's telling me that the kettle is doomed to go at any point, but she has it a 7. So we as a group are looking at a 7. That doesn't matter, we just kick it aside. It's how she ranked them in order. She didn't do them for any other reason, but, well, the first thing I need is I need this, and then I need this, and I need this. But they may need, I think the fire department was one that actually, no, they did the same thing. They did them in sequence as well.
Well, I went in sequence as far as priority for this year, and then I just wanted to get certain items that were on the, get them on the list. Because if you remember, it used to be if something was on for years, if it was reasonable, we tried to include it.
Right.
And that,
But like, I had furnishings and stuff like
Right.
that. It's not really a high priority, but I want to get it on the list, because eventually it's gonna,
and that was the same with, you know, John was ready, well, the highway garage isn't going to happen, I'm taking
Right.
it off, and I'm like, no, if this is needed, but we
Correct.
can't afford it, you need
Right.
to keep it
correct.
out there.
Right.
Keep it there so that when we have the money, we
People
can fund
aware.
it. Right. Yeah,
And now we're at a point where we get a new truck, there's no place for, there's no room in the garage. Or the garage can't, the capacity or the height, whatever. So it needs to be.
Yeah, I guess, so in my mind, what I was going after was as a standalone item,
Yeah.
how important is that? Disregarding everything around it. And then you get to the next item as a standalone, and so I could get a priority that way. So I guess if they, and they being the department head, they would still have priority 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the top, and on the bottom, they would have must do, should do, and whatever on the bottom. That's how they would grade their stuff accordingly. And that's what we need to look at. So if we're moving the funding source from category 4 and we're putting in category 1, then that's a must-do category for it. So we got to clean this up a little bit and make it so it's more logical for everybody that's looking at it, so we understand. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
And then I think we need to look at the process by which we can set up that special fund to start funding the equipment.
Yeah, but that's not for next Monday. That's
No, we're definitely going to look into that until somebody tells me, no, I'm not stopping on that either. But we need to know when it can go on, because if it can go on the fall, we need to start immediately trying to come up with a strategy for that. I think it's very important that we have a continuing continuity on discussions with that, even if it's, whether it's through finance or it's through the selectmen's meeting or wherever it goes through, just to get this thought process out there and see if it has any, if it's valid or not. If it's not, then it's not. Okay.
I just think it's, quite honestly, good to have somebody finally back on the finance committee, on the capital committee as well. Because there's definitely some input there, and it takes a while to wrap our heads around some of this stuff, so that you don't sound like you're speaking Arabic when you go to the finance committee.
Well, I think it's also important to follow up on that. It's important for the finance committee to have somebody here listening
Correct.
to all the discussions and the concerns that have been expressed.
And I think the last
Because-
person we had here was Paula from
Yeah.
finance committee.
Yeah.
So it's been a few years.
Yeah, and that's just as important as the scoring thing, to understand what the mentality was behind it. So
Yep.
now finance he's already been through the wall with us going and trying to come up with this plan, so he understands what went into it. When you're just presented with it, it's hard to put your head around it. And that's what we're faced with when the departments come in with all these things, is trying to put our head around it. So that's why I want to clean this up, so then we can understand it without diving into them too hard.
Yeah, I think having the letter next to their priority is going to help streamline where their head was at.
Yeah, because there's different things. So if you put priority one, what does it mean? That, is there a legal problem? I don't know. So I think we jumble that around, and if everybody could just turn around if you wanted to change it, say, so if you wanted to put, I'm going to use that funding source in the score one there, so it's 1B, you would just put it underneath the column of, if you wanted it under priority one, just put 1B there, so then we know that we're going to move it.
And then there's some of them, they're gonna hit all.
We have a consensus like we just did with the scoring, and then we can just shuffle them around a little bit.
Yeah, the school was a
Got
good,
his hand up again. You gotta go to the bathroom, Mr. Bamber?
So I'm just looking at the state guidelines here, and it says, creation of a fund requires a 2/3 vote of the legislative body. It doesn't say special or annual, it just says 2/3 vote.
Right, so,
It could be at the special,
in your opinion?
yeah.
Yep, so I would want those gentlemen that we pay money to each year, call town council, to tell us whether it's annual or special. If we can go on special, if I could do it now, I would do it now. I think it's very important that we get this established. It's gonna, for lack of a better description, and not a pun intended, but stabilize his request as to what's coming on every 5 years. We're constantly getting
I
hit with
wonder
this thing.
if Lisa could contact the town council and just ask them.
Yeah, so we would have the answer by next Monday.
To start thinking.
Yep. Is that something that Lisa would do, Jean, or could you inquire into that?
I can ask. I think the fall is probably going to be only just to give us time to get it on. We're getting very close to that crunch time.
Yeah.
Are you okay waiting till the fall?
That's my hope.
Oh, yeah, no, get it on the fall would be the earliest. I don't see
Oh,
any
okay.
option at all getting it on that now. So the question is can we do it on a
Okay.
special,
Yeah,
or it has to
we'll
be an
get an
annual?
answer.
So,
But I don't know that we need it for next week, right?
No.
no, we don't need it for next week.
And I
But-
think we need more discussion and get a thing with Jean.
Yeah, but
Yep,
we want to know if,
And I only deferred to Jean because she understands what it is I'm asking, so there's no reason to put Lisa through all that to get the wordage right. Okay, Jean?
I apologize if I don't know the answer to this question, but the building vehicle purchase of $50,000,
We didn't vote on that. I'm
you did
glad.
not vote on that.
That's right.
because it's in the operating.
No. She caught us before we had a problem. So that is, and I overlooked bringing Ken up to speed on that. So that is going to be a capital item, but a special capital item or standalone?
So I would like it as part of this, can we just do a secondary vote on that? Because I
Yes.
would,
No, we're gonna, yeah.
because it meets the threshold, I don't want to put it by itself,
Okay.
but your vote can indicate that it's a raise and appropriate, not from a free cash.
Correct.
So if you could do a secondary vote on
Yep.
that, so we
Yep.
can incorporate it as one article.
Yep.
You
So.
are good, Jean.
So, thank you for catching that, totally overlooked it. The building department vehicle is going to be, suggested that we raise and appropriate the funds out of future permit fees. So we want it as part of our capital, which actually will push us up to $1,310,048. So need a motion to, if everybody's in favor of it, motion to recommend the purchase of a vehicle for the building department, and the funds will be raised, through raise and appropriate the funds.
So
Is that how
moved.
it goes? Gene? That proper wording on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moved.
Motion made by Ken. Any second on that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vanderberg. Any discussion on that?
I'm good. I'm not in favor of this, but, and it's not the process you're going through. I'm just, I don't see the need, but So I'll either vote no or I'll abstain, and I'll be,
Either one of them is fine, Ellie,
Okay.
and just for clarity, I would prefer you just be honest about it, and if that's where you are, that's fine. I don't personally have any issue with that at all. I would respect you more for, like Keith said at the meeting, standing by your principles.
okay.
So we have a motion by Kent and seconded by Mr. Vandenberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So we have, it's passed unanimously.
No, it didn't.
Well, it passed by majority.
Yes.
Thanks, Brandon. You got my back, brother. Got my back. Getting tied. So we're going to add that on to capital item, which will bring us to $1,310,048. I just want to find my little list of things here. Building and department vehicle.
What was that final fee?
50.
What, the final total amount?
Yes.
$1,310,048. So 1310048.
Got it.
Anybody else have any questions? We all understand our homework?
5 years?
5-year plan, I'll get the second, Gene. 5-year plan and review the scoring sheet for next Monday? Yes, Gene?
I just wanted you to extend the invitation to Kent to come to tomorrow night's FinCom meeting, because he has a large item.
Fire trucks.
750,000.
I thought a
that's-
separate one.
You? You made the motion. Oh, almost.
Who else is at finance tomorrow night?
You and BBT,
The two Fitzpatrick.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
That should be fun.
Gene, I changed it from staff to Dr. Fitzpatrick.
Did you?
notice
Thank you for that.
Okay, so I would have sent out an email anyways, but thank you for mentioning it now. I'll be sending out an email to everybody that made the cut, for lack of a better decision, to get onto the team. To that they're being recommended, and if they want to support their project, it would be recommended that they show up. Yeah, I think it's important that the fire department shows up, the highway department shows up, most likely facilities shows up, because they have that, and so everybody understands the paving of that parking lot.
That meeting,
Building department, if he wants to show up. and-
I watched the meeting when we talked about, when you folks talked about putting the roof on the old school. Couldn't remember what the other part was. It was connecting the road so that the schools met.
Yes.
Is that paving the road in the back?
Nope, it was the one
It's a different one.
that goes down to the middle school and elementary. That wasn't there. So that's what they did. They put that road in, the connector road.
Yes, we did. And I remember when I first got on the board, the big issue was replacing highway trucks that were constantly being fixed. Their ages were,
Oh, I have concern about the one that we passed over
I know.
this time, but only so much we can do. Anyways, if nobody else has anything further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
Shirley got it, yeah.
Motion made by Shirley, seconded by Ellie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ellie, are you opposed?
No, I
Okay,
said
all right,
aye.
no, just-
Oh,
I'm only-
now he's kicking us.
I'm only